Welcome to EPG Pathshala. In today's session, I am going to discuss about Introduction to MySQL. The learning objective of today's sessions are MySQL introduction, then we discuss about MySQL strength, data types available in MySQL, how we can use SQL in MySQL. SQL in MySQL is a large topic, so I stretch on 2-3 more modules, but in this module I am going to discuss little bit about SQL in MySQL and how we can create index in MySQL. So, MySQL also sometimes read as a MySQL. It is an open source relational database management system. As like other RDBMS, MySQL also supports to store and retrieve the data, and it allows multiple users to work simultaneously. It also facilitates user to access data only whichever his user has rights. MySQL is one of the we can say very popular open source database, and it use standard query language which is known as a SQL, structured query language. MySQL is considered as the world's most popular open source database. Of course, there are some proprietary databases available, but as a open source MySQL is very popular. MySQL is available under two license scheme. First one is known as a for open source, or it can be, you can say, GPL license, general public license. The second one is purchased as a commercial license. Generally, commercial license is required if redistribute the application with database, then commercial license is required, otherwise the GPL license is sufficient. So, what are the strength of MySQL? So, first one is performance, that means MySQL is really very fast. Been done by benchmark has been done by one of the system, and they have found that MySQL works very fast as compared as with some proprietary relational database management system. Second is portability, that means MySQL works on many operating systems, major operating systems like Unix, Linux, Windows, etc. Third one is MySQL is very easy to learn. Of course, each language there are SQL dialects which are different, but as we know that if we know structured query language, so it will be very similar for most of the commands, or we can say statement. Then in MySQL supports are available, you can get support or help from website or any other way, and as MySQL are free, the cost is very low. Generally PHP and MySQL are used with combination because both these are open source and freely available. So, to develop any website, dynamic website, you do not need to make any cost by for using PHP and MySQL. Now, let us start how we can work with MySQL. So, we can work with MySQL by either graphical user interface or command line interface. To work with command line interface, you have to just start WAMP and click on MySQL console. I just show you how you can work with that. Say for example, this is my WAMP server. So, I double click on it and it will start. As it will be start, here you can see the icon is green. So, now if you click on here and go to the MySQL, so there is a MySQL console is there. If you click on to it, so that will be open MySQL console and it will ask for password. If I type password, so that will open the MySQL, and you can see here it will display this is MySQL monitor and what versions we are using, etc. I just would like to give idea about that. Initially MySQL is open source, then MySQL is acquired by Sun Microsystem, and then Oracle acquired Sun Microsystem. So, now MySQL is actually you can say a product of Oracle. Of course, many developers are trying to develop open source MariaDB or MySQL AB for totally open source. Another way is that if you set environment variable, You can also start by command prompt also directly. Say for example, let me show you, I just close this one first. And now, if I start my command window and if I type here MySQL and I have to, so that will be open MySQL as well also. But for that you have to set go to the your you can set your variable by using go to the this PC properties, and in this properties go to advanced system settings and there are environment variables. In environment variables you can set path. In path I have add the path which I require for MySQL at last after semicolon, and I also add one variable here, new variable MySQL here and path. So, when I type MySQL it will be run or execute from command prompt. So, this is how you can work with MySQL either by command prompt or by you can work with graphical user interface. Now, to log in from another machine, this is in the same machine I have installed my MySQL server, but MySQL client will be here and you want to use that machine. So, you have to type that command MySQL, then you have to type -h and host name, then you type minus or hyphen symbol u and username and -p for password. So, it will be asking for password. So, you can write MySQL, host is localhost. So, you can write MySQL -h localhost, or you can omit it because it is localhost, u is username and p for password. So, this is the simple command to log in from another machine to MySQL. Now, we work with MySQL and we perform create a database, use it database, drop database, create table, alter table, create index as well. Uses and privileges I will take on next lecture. So, to create database, the general syntax is create database and database name. Optionally, you can use the clause if not exists. Let us say take by example. So, this is my, I just again start my MySQL monitor, or I can work with here. So, let me start my MySQL console. So, this is root. Now, I type create, I think it is visible, or should I increase font size. So, let me write go to the properties and font should be large enough. So, I make this 12 by 16. So, it is visible. Now, I type create database. Let us say my database name is account. So, that will be create one database. Now, this in this database you can create many tables, as we know that database is a collection of tables and you can define relationship and its structure when you create table. So, my database is created. Now, I would like to use this database. So, use account. So, my database is right now this account database. Now, I can create table in it. So, this is use database. If I want to drop any database, I can drop it. Drop means it will be physically deleted from my system, but make sure before drop the database you should have proper privileges, and generally it should be done by either DBA or super user, because database is very essential and no one can delete it very easily. But to give you idea, let me create one database here. So, let me create one more database, create database temp, use temp, right, and now you can write drop database temp. So, this database is now removed from my system. As I say, we can create database by GUI also, and it is quite easy to use graphical user interface. So, now I will show you how you can work with graphical user interface, and when you work with graphical user interface, it will also show the statement in MySQL graphical user interface command. So, you can get the syntax as well also. So, let me close this one, and to use the GUI, go to this icon and click on PHP MyAdmin. PHP MyAdmin is a client for MySQL server, but it provide GUI. So, it will be open here. Is it working as okay? So, now it will be open in the browser, and it is localhost and PHP MyAdmin. So, this is the first screen when you start your PHP MyAdmin. This is used for MySQL, and it shows which version is there, and you can see here this is the database we have created account. So, it will be shown here. If you want to drop it, you can drop it from here also. I will show you that. Just say for example, go to the we are on localhost, and now there are many databases. So, what are databases available? That will be available here. Say for example, if I would like to delete that database, so I can delete it from here, and then I can create it also. But right now as it is available, I will like to use it. So, when I click account, so you can see here which database currently I am using, account database, because from localhost I am on account database. Now, I can create table in database. So, to create table, you have to use create table syntax. The syntax is quite simple: create table, table name, then into parenthesis you have to write column name space data type and optionally column attributes, and you can provide as many column attributes as you like, separated by space, then space put comma and define second column, column name space its data type and column attributes, and so on. MySQL supports many data types, but if we consider, then it supports mainly 9 most common data types, which can be divided into 3 groups: numeric, string and date and time. So, numeric data type has a 3 main data type. First one is integer, and it store integer number as a whole value, as we know about for any database. By default size is 11. Size is a optional thing, but if you would like to provide, you can then tiny int, and again here size is optional, and it occupies 4 sizes, and range is -1 to 7 to +1 to 8. That means, if you define any column with tiny int, so it can store maximum value is +1 to 8 or -1 to 7. If you put 1 to 9, so that cannot be stored in tiny int data type. Then decimal data type, which can take precision and scale both also, and you can provide it by p comma s, and by default precision is 10 and scale is 0. Then in string data type, so 3 types. One is varchar, which is size. So, it is variable length character, and maximum character can store is 65,535. Next data type is character. So, it is a fixed length character, while varchar is variable length, and the size parameter determines by maximum number of characters, as we know that in ASCII one character occupies 1 byte. The maximum number of characters stored by char data type is 255, and by default size is 1, and text data type is a variable length characters, and maximum size is 65,535 bytes. Date data type is stored date from January 1st 1000 to December 31st 9999. This is the default format, and it will be displayed in YYY 4 times, hyphen month in 2 digits, hyphen date in 2 digits. Time stored from -838 to 59 to 59 to plus this one, and this is the default format is hour, minute and second. And date time stores date and time from January 1st 1970 to December 31st 9999 year. The default format for date is 4 digit year hyphen 2 digit month hyphen 2 digit date space hour colon minute colon second. Now, column attributes. So, column attributes you can use primary key, foreign key, not null or unique. These 4 are the constraints. Primary key and foreign key we have discussed last lecture, that these are the important thing when you we require relation among data tables of a database, and we know that primary key is unique and not null, and it supports entity integrity, while referential integrity is supported by foreign key. Of course, we will learn how to define it in next session, but just right now you can consider that these are the constraint: primary key, foreign key, unique and not null. Apart from that, you can add default and auto increment column attributes as well. Now, not null is a special value, and in null value indicate the value of column is either unknown or known, but missing, and it is not equivalent to 0 or neither or a empty string. And unique is a unique constraint which is provide uniqueness by allowing unique value in a column, and when you define primary key or column, MySQL generate index for them. Then default is again one of the column attribute to provide default value. So, when you define any column and you would like to provide default value, so when user not enter the value, it will be take the by default value. In case user provides some value, then the default value will be override. But like say for example, you define column gender and there are you can say default is male. So, by chance user will not enter any value in the gender column or gender value, it will be take male. If user enter female, so it will be override as a female. So, store in your database as a female. Auto increment allows to automatically incremented value when a new row or new record is added. So, these all are the column attributes. This is the example of create table vendor, and we can create vendor in that. Say for example, let us create our one table here. Let me write table name is say vendor. How many number of fields I require? Let us say for example, I make 5 fields and click on go button. So, that will be again open new screen here, there I can define field name. So, let us say for example, let me make zoom it, so it will be clearly visible to you. VID for vendor ID, data type is integer, length is say 4, that means maximum value I can store is 9999, total length of my integer data type is this. And another good thing is that if you are connected with internet, there are help you can also get for type, and if you look at here all this type is available here. These are the main type you can use, otherwise type name and its subtype name like numeric, date and time, string, etc. If you want to provide any default value as you provide, right now I do not require. This is collation. So, collation is a set of characters which is used to sort and compare strings. MySQL by default take Latin 1 character collation, and each I can say collation as a one character set, but every character set can be connected with more than one collation. Right now I skip it. In the attributes, if you like to give any attributes, you can provide attributes like binary, unsigned, etc. Whether you would like to put as a null or not null, if you check it, then it allow null value, if it is unchecked, then it is not allow. If you want to create index onto it, primary or that. So, I would like to make VID as my primary key, I would like to define constraint. So, I choose primary here, a underscore I means auto increment, I would like to provide as a auto increment. So, it will be displayed here. Now, I write vendor first name and its data type is varchar, size is let us say 25, and on all that I put as it is blank. Then vendor last name, again its data type is varchar, size is 25, vendor city, as VCT, it is again varchar and let us say 40 character, and vendor mobile. So, generally mobile is not required for any mathematical calculation. So, I prefer varchar and it should be let us say 30 character. So, this is all about this, and MySQL provide many storage engine like MyISM, CSV, memory, InnoDB, etc. By default it is InnoDB, which is transaction safe, and it also support foreign key. Some storage engine may not support foreign key or referential integrity concept. So, when you want to define foreign key, make sure your storage engine is InnoDB, and for your database you can also choose collation, or I can write with SQL. Say for example, I can make this the same thing here by SQL, like I can make create table vendor, and if I run this command and click on go button, so it will also work. So, look at here, it will also show you query table has been created, and into bracket it will be shows how many tables in this database. So, account database is a one table vendor, and you can see its structure here with underline as means it is a primary key and it will work. After creating table, you can use show tables and describe table to describe the table. Show tables will show all the table names within that database. Say for example, if I write in SQL, and right now I am on account database and I write show tables and click on go button. So, it will be show I have only one table, and to describe my table I can write describe vendor. So, it will be show me the structure of my table, field name, type, null, primary key, or what so all this details is displayed. Now, when you work with SQL, so SQL has 4 types of language. These are known as a data definition language, or short form is DDL, data manipulation language, or short form is DML, data transaction language, and data control language. So, these are the 4 main languages, each one is used for specific purpose. The data definition language is used to make structure and organize your data, and the statements come inside DDL are create, alter, drop and truncate. These 4 statements come inside DDL, while data manipulation language is used to retrieve the data as well as to add any new record, update the previously added record, or delete the record which is available in table. So, we can say it is actually used to perform CRUD operation, create, read, update and delete. Create means to add new record, R means read, read means you are selecting the data. Some author also says that data query language as a select statement, but in general DML consider with this 4 statements: select, insert, update and delete. Data control language has 2 commands, grant and revoke, which is used when you create user and you would like to assign particular grant to particular user, and if you would like to revoke that grant for particular database or particular table, you can revoke it. And data transaction language commands are commit, rollback and save point, which is used for transaction when database perform. So, I will take later on when we discuss on that. Now, once a table is created, you can alter table also by adding a new column at the end of table or after a specified column. You can drop a column, you can rename a column or modify the column of existing table. Let us take example of one by one. Let us say first one I will show you the syntax. So, the general syntax is alter table, optional you can write database name dot and table name. If it is the same database, then do not need to write database name, and within the curly braces you can write add column name, its data type and column attributes, or you can write drop column name, or you can use modify, column name, data type and column attributes. Any one you can use at a time. Let us say for example, let me add column into it. So, this is or in SQL I can write alter table, our table name is vendor, and let me add pin and say character 6. So, I add one more column in it. I just save it or copy it and just show you structure, that right now in our vendor table there is a no pin code we add into it. So, I just copy paste the code which I have written, alter table vendor add pin, click on go. So, it will be that will be written, and now if you look at the structure, so pin will be added here, it is a new column. Of course, you want to decide where you would like to add, you can also work with that way, where you can add that column. That will be available, that after which column you would like to add. In suppose you like to add any new column, so you can also decide after which column also. Now, if you want to modify it, say for example, here this is pin, I would like to change it with let us say rename it. So, I can rename it also. Say for example, to rename it you can work with change, and here you can say field is pin code, not pin, but I would like to write pin code and save. So, you can look at here, it will show syntax also, alter table vendor and change old name to new name with character 6, and by default the character set is this, collateral is this, null and default this. If you want to rename size or data type also, you can also write command for that. Write say for example, either by within use this GUI or by writing SQL. Say for example, I would like to change with varchar. So, I can write in SQL also. What should I write? Alter table vendor, and I can write modify. Now, my field name is pin code, and instead care let me write varchar 6. So, if I click go, and now if you browse the structure, you can see it will be varchar 6. If you want to drop any column, so you can drop column also. Say for example, you would like to drop it, so you can drop it either by GUI or through SQL. You can write alter table vendor drop column pin code. So, it will be asked that do you really want to drop? If you say yes, so that will be drop. Of course, there are data is not exist that MySQL will check, but lots of facility available by this all this command. Then you can rename table also. The general syntax is rename table old name to new table name. Say for example, if I would like to change this, my table name is vendor. So, I can write rename table vendor to let us say new vendor. Click on go. So, that will be now if you look at the structure and you have to refresh it, look at here, it will be again only display vendor, not new vendor, but as I refresh it, it will be display as a new vendor. So, I can rename using rename command rename my table. To drop a table, you can use drop table statement. Say for example, if I would like to drop this table, let me instead create a new table and then drop it. So, I go to the SQL, let us say create table temp with two attribute, id is integer and it is primary key, and name which is varchar 6. So, this is my table is completed. Click on go. So, it will be created new table temp. If I want to drop it, I just need to write here in SQL drop table temp. In MySQL, statement is terminated with semicolon, but as I write into this command, I do not need to provide semicolon. Otherwise, in MySQL, statement terminated when you provide semicolon. So, this is how you can drop the table. To truncate a table, so difference between drop and truncate is that you can, when you drop, it will be delete the table structure and data both, but when you truncate, it will be delete only data, table structure will remain as it is, and this is the syntax truncate table and table name. Now, let us move to index. So, as we know that index provide facility to go directly rather than search through, or you can say scan all the records and found specified record. Generally, index should be created for column which use as a either foreign key, or the column which used frequently in search condition or in join, or a column which has a large distinct value and a column which is not updated frequently. But you should be not create index for each and every column. You should be think that you should choose the column to create index which are updated not frequently, because otherwise it will be slow your insert, update and delete operation. To create index, the general syntax is create. Optionally, you can use unique keyword to create unique index, means it store only unique values of that particular column. Create index, index name on optional database dot then table name and then column name, optionally ascending or descending order, and you can create index on more than one column. So, you can decide on to it, and when you create index primary key or unique, MySQL by default create index for that particular column. This is the some of the example of that, like create index invoices, and the name of index is this invoices underscore date underscore ix on table invoices on column invoice date. Second example is create index, index name is invoices underscore vendor on table invoices, and it is a composite index on both the column vendor ID and invoice number. Third example is create unique index vendor phone on vendors on column vendor phone. So, only unique vendor phone is stored in this index, and create index invoice total on table invoices on column invoice total in descending order. Even let me show very small example for this one. Rename new vendor to vendor, go. Rename table, I have forgot the keyword table, and then table name. So, now it will be work, rename table new vendor to vendor. So, again my table is vendor. Now, I would like to create one index into it. So, the structure I know that there are the columns are for vendor is VCT, VMobile, VAddress, etc. So, say for example, I can create index on to VCT. I can write create index IDX VCT on table vendor on the column VCT. So, query is successfully executed, and when you move to the structure, you can see the primary key we define on that column. So, this is VID, and we name we create one index, and it is type is B tree. So, that will be available here. So, you can see all this thing into it. So, this is all about today's session. Let us summarize today's module. In today's module, we are learning about MySQL, that MySQL is an open source RDBMS, and it provides many facilities like it works very fast, learning is very easy, it works on major operating system. Generally PHP and MySQL are used to create any dynamic website because they both are free. And then we consider how you can use SQL, MySQL, and we create database, create table, what are the data types available in MySQL, how you can alter table, and how you can create index. So, this is all about this session. Next lecture I will continue more with SQL on MySQL. I hope you are enjoying this. These all are the references I am using for prepare this material, and thank you for watching this. Thank you.